So please welcome Nicole Frolick to the show. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, you're so welcome. Before I pushed record, I told you how much fun I've had learning about you, your story. And I know you have a podcast and you interview people. And, I'm almost to my fourth year, but, as you go and you start to meet these people, meet guests and go down their rabbit holes and feel I'm at the place in my life with where I am with you is where does she what pulls me in my life that I either resonate with, I feel parallel to what I'm going through now as a mother with two teenage girls. When you were a teenager, when I start to do this to relate to you. And there's so many aspects of you that I could go down. I mean, it was like, oh, inner child. Oh, I mean, star seeds, dating. I mean, there was all these different avenues. We could probably do 5 episodes easy with each of your, where all of the things that you have discovered in your life. But the thing that I love about you is that what you teach or what you talk about is because you've experienced it and you've learned from that. And why I reflect that with my children, because Paige is 17, she's a senior, and Presley's a freshman, she's 14. And I looked at your childhood and listened, and then I started picturing my childhood with what my mom and dad for me, because I was trying to relate to your experience and what you took along your travels with your life, your breadcrumbs as you went into the world because of your childhood. And I'm an older parent, so I didn't have Paige till I was 37 and Presley when I was 40. So I had those years ahead of me or before them that I really knew I'm going to be so intentional. I'm going to be super I'm going to plant the seeds. I'm going to program them as the best I can as a mom, and like how we grew up, our parents didn't have that. Like, I mean, some did, but mine didn't. And, we figured out how to do our stuff and get there and go to college. I'm laughing at Paige because I'm thinking, I just figured out how to sign an application. My mom didn't tell me how to do it. And I just got into a college and they drove me there and dropped me off. There was no, for me and how I am, it was like, wow, I just figured it out. But I wanted to, with you, Nicole, to where I want to start, I guess, is my point is I'd love to go into the inner child, because I think that's part, when I think of Nicole Frolick, I think first thing that comes to me is inner child work. But go back to why that really was, that's kind of, I look at you as that's a theme in when you talk. Go back to maybe when you were growing up with your dad and that influence, and what the things that you discovered about being raised by your mom and dad and what you experienced as a teenager with the natural path, and kind of going there. Is that an okay place to start?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my dad, he's a very funny man. He he raised me to be able, like you, just to figure things out, do them on your own. And he always kind of just threw me into the fire. He's like, you'll figure it out. And I remember even when I was 16 and he was teaching me how to drive. Well, actually, no, it wasn't when I was 16. I mean, he did teach me how to drive, and it was still, even then, a little terrifying because he had this, he has a low patience tolerance, and much like I do too. I've taken that on from him, and that's something I'm always working on. But when I want to say 21, 22, somewhere around there, I got my own car, like a brand new car, and I wanted it to be standard. And so I wanted to actually learn how to manually drive. And so we picked the car up from the dealership, and he's like, all right. And at the time I was living in Toronto, Canada, big city, and it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is the height of, rush hour traffic. Everyone's wanting to get home. And he's like, okay, we're going to learn. So he starts me off in this kind of little side street that he's kind of teaching me how to use the clutch and all that, how to shift gears. He's like, all right, let's go into traffic. And I said, what do you mean? It's only been 15 minutes. And of course, my father's method is just, if I yell at her enough, she'll figure it out. And so I was always under this stress of, I learned how to figure things out in stressful situations. And sure enough, he asked me to turn into a street that is going into a valley and then up a hill. And as I go down this valley and up the hill, the traffic stops and he wants me to make a left-hand turn. And I'm like, of course, if anyone who's out there has ever driven standard before, you know that when you're on a hill, like you can easily stall out the car. And so, of course, I stalled it out on the hill and he's just yelling at me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I've got all these people around. And of course, I'm a people pleaser. And so I don't want to make anyone mad. I don't want to cause problems to other people's environment. And so I've got all the stress of what I think other people around me are thinking and on the road. And so eventually, though, I figured it out. And soon he's like, all right, you're good. You can go off to go see your boyfriend now and just drive home later tonight. So that was literally how he taught me how to drive, literally in a matter of 30 minutes. I figured it out. But even as I say that to you, it's really dawning on me how much I learned to live and thrive in chaotic situations. And having that amount of stress coming at me, I actually realized like I won't push myself to get something done until it's almost like the very end, like until I'm under fire. And I actually work really well under the gun. But that's not exactly healthy or how I want to always the state I think my nervous system wants to be in all the time.
Right.
And so my dad, he was difficult. We had a very up and down relationship. I love him dearly. Him and I have a great relationship right now, but it was hard because we're so alike. And my mother used to say that all the time, because you're just like your father. And I would test his patience all the time. I'm pretty sure most of his, never mind gray hair, lack of hair, is due to many of the things I put him through. But it's because I always challenged authority and I always challenged the masculine authority. And so I think my father, he gave me a lot of good skills and he gave me a really good work ethic. He gave me a ability to learn how to be very independent. But I also learned through him that I couldn't lean on other people, because if I leaned on someone, I'd get yelled at. If I leaned on somebody, it's just all of a sudden I get I don't want to say I was shamed, but in a way I was, because I felt bad for being yelled at. And so all of these things caused me to really learn to just trust myself and no one else. And so learning how to just figure things out on my own, like you were saying you did, when you went to school, I had the same situation. Like my parents weren't part of the conversation at all,
Right.
like they just assumed that I was going to choose a really good school and that I would get in. I was always a straight A student. I was always one of the top athletes in my school on almost every sports team. And so I guess my parents never had to worry about me, but at the same time, because they never had to worry about me, I also never got any attention that was nurturing to the things where I maybe needed them. I don't know. Did you have a similar experience?
Gosh, totally. Listening to you going, gosh, the under pressure, that's when I can perform. I got to be under pressure. There's got to be a deadline. And, with my dad, I have a different, I'm the oldest of three girls. And I was always like the team captain, like you were, that always in the sports, always like people pleaser, made sure I was friends with all my teachers. And, if something went wrong and I was like wrecked for like months if I disappointed anybody. But when I think of your story and how I relate to it, and even more now, knowing what you just said, when I look now, I want to go to like how we date. Cause I'm with Paige right now, who's 17. And I was dating, my high school experience compared to hers is completely different,
Mm.
because I want to ask you, I know you don't have children, but because I was coming from my inner, I was fixing my inner, was I fixing my inner child by trying to navigate her by what I lacked in my childhood and those years, and where I was gravitating, to the boys for attention, or always in my masculine, Nicole, always lived my life until I met Richard in my 30s in my masculine. And so I relate to that so much, and trying to figure out how to be in your feminine, and being a mother and nurturing, that's easy for me to be,
Mm-hmm.
in that aspect, because it just comes naturally. But explain that. What do you think that, where does that, when you not having kids, but looking at people that, have tried to figure out how to, know where their wounds were, and then trying to figure out how to maneuver my children's childhood. So they didn't have, I mean, everyone has their own path. I know you believe the same thing. We have a blueprint. We're here to learn our lessons, and we're these souls that connected and are going to learn from each other. But with my children, we're at the end of their childhood. You wonder what their wounds are, and what they're going to what they're going to do dating these men. It's like, I come from all girls, and knowing my dad and seeing the three of us dating and how we handled it all differently,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I mean, it can obviously the position of in your family where you were born is going to play a role, and of course, just even to your own soul. We
Right.
all are different, even though we come into the family and we take on certain traits of our parents. We're all going to have our own unique individual characteristics and ways that we express them, and of course, we came in wanting certain lessons through the certain dynamics of our family that we were going to experience. And I think that, that's still even one of my lifetime goals is I'm hoping that I still get an opportunity to be a mother and have children. And I want that so much because I've done so much inner child work. And now I feel like I'm at a place where I can really do a good job. And of course, no one's perfect and we're all going to screw up. But like you said, being intentional with raising children, like being an actual conscious parent is something I would love the opportunity to do. And I think that, when it comes to our own wounds, as much as we may try to do all the things that we never got, oftentimes, especially when there has been not even only, but when you haven't done your own inner child work, or you're still maybe newer into it, and you're a parent and you have children, there are a lot of unconscious patterns that you are exhibiting that you don't even realize the child is picking up on.
Right.
Like through, for instance, you could be a parent who was totally ignored by your parents, much like you and I, where we just like, go do it your own, like you can figure it out. I don't need to watch over you. And in essence, what you do is you lack all of that nurturing. And so when you do go to have kids, you might be the helicopter parent. You might be the
Right.
parent who wants to go in there and just be there all the time and like be completely in your kid's life and helping them make all the decisions, and sometimes maybe even making the decisions for them. And it's not that one or the other is really bad. It's just there's patterns in there too that are going to affect the child. And so, what they might see that you don't realize is, um, when I have kids, or not even have kids, but if you neglect your own needs as a parent by tending to every need of your child, they're going to see that, oh, mom or dad doesn't take care of themselves. Now, if it's the daughter, she may choose a partner, a man who is only going to cater to her and not to his needs. And that will eventually start to create a lot of disruption in the relationship. And if it's the son, maybe he might see, oh, like this is what my role is as a man, is I got to just completely give myself and not tend to give all of myself and not actually have anything for me. And so there's always ways that we need to look at things differently. And being the perfect parent is impossible. It's
Right.
absolutely impossible. But the inner child work, you do get to start to unravel some of that, so that when you're operating, despite your best conscious efforts, you don't have that subconscious program in the background working against you and creating behaviors and choices that end up kind of unraveling the good work that you're trying to achieve.
Right. I was listening to you this morning and I was walking with my dogs, and I'm still there because I was listening to you talk about how you ask your clients how to work through their inner child, is go to the place when you were, when you can remember, like as a little girl for me, right? Like where you felt with your mom, like the memories that you have, you loved the forest, like you loved being out in nature.
Yeah.
So so it was so interesting, and I go so much to, like, I did me, but then I go, I wonder what Paige would say. I wonder what, I'm so like, this mother that's so like, I wonder where I was the one that what she sees as, the way I mothered her. Will you explain that, how you start with people with that? Because I was even sharing it with my friend today, and she said it was her memory was when she was probably 2, and she had her head on her mom's chest, and she could hear the vibration of her voice. And she's like, I don't know. She's like, Ashley, I've never done that before. That was so really interesting. Will you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is one thing that is really difficult for many people to grasp when they start their inner child healing, is to understand that how the child experiences it is very different from the adult version of what that experience is, whether it's the adult version of the actual parent or the adult version of you remembering your inner child experience. And so oftentimes a child can experience something and have all of this pain and be very upset with the parent for whatever it may have been and how that child experienced it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the parent was wrong all the time. Sometimes what can happen is it's just there was a lack of understanding. I mean, as a child, you don't have a conscious mind in developing until the age of 7. And so everything is subconscious. Everything's a program. Everything's just absorbed, like you're a sponge. You're absorbing everyone else's stuff, and you don't even really know how to really utilize and break down everything in a conscious manner. And so when you're remembering your inner child experiences, what I'll often have to help clients remember is that, one, this is not about demonizing your parents. It's about remembering the version of the story that you as a child experience. Now, in that version, you may be really angry at your parents, and they may have done something wrong. They may have not. That's not really at the point of the point I'm trying to make here right now. It's about understanding that you have to honor the experience of the child, every emotion, every belief, every thought form that came up, before you can get to the point of rationalization and understanding where there can be healing in forgiveness for yourself, forgiveness for your parents, whatever it may be. And so that's why I say, like, despite your best efforts, you can't control how your child chooses to experience something between you and them. And it's important that each person is validated within their own feelings. And I think this is something we can even see in our adult relationships, of learning how do we honor each person's feelings. We can't tell someone how to feel or not feel, right?
Right.
And so, one, it's really important that when you do go back and you remember, that it's okay to go there and get in as dark as you need to in how you remember the experience, despite the part of you that doesn't want to demonize your parents, because it's not. It's just about first honoring the actual experience that you had as the child. And then we can start pulling in the adult versions and start to understand. And you can talk to her or him, and start to heal that.
Right. Oh, there was one that you said you were doing that with your inner child. And she said, is it going to be hard? Or, or looking back at,
Are
the
we
times,
okay?
are we
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Are we okay? And that made me cry. Because then I start
Oh,
to relate to that thinking, oh my, I could cry right now. But, then I think in my life, like you were reflecting in yours, like, oh my gosh, you'd look back and think, gosh, all those times that did something wrong or made the wrong choice, which now everything's perfect, right? But when you look back and go, gosh, are we going to be okay? Oh,
I know. And that people who will really resonate with that are people who put a lot of pressure on themselves to excel, to be so good, to be perfect, to, like I put so much pressure on myself because I felt like I needed to. One, I felt like my parents would love me more if I was a straight A student, if I was a top athlete. It was actually one of the only ways that I would really get their attention to actually pay attention to me, other than my two other sisters and my brother, because the whole reality was, well, Nicole's got this. She knows how to handle herself. And so the striving for excellence was driven by my need to not only have more love for my parents, but also maybe get their attention every now and then. Um, but all of that pressure, you don't realize how much you're putting on yourself, and you start taking on the responsibility of other people's feelings and other people's needs, and you just start carrying the weight of the world. And so when she asked me, "Are we okay?" I broke down in tears, because I realized that, well, first of all, there was such a deep inherent need within me to be really good, not just good as a person, but just really good at everything. And what if I wasn't? What did my value then have? But then also in that moment with her in particular, that was before, and I didn't realize it at the time. It only was revealed to me a few years later, which is why it's so important to journal your stuff, because you can go back and start putting the puzzle pieces together. But after she said that to me, she's like, "Do we do anything bad?"
mm,
And there are moments in our childhood where if we're punished or something bad happens to us, we actually think it's a punishment because we haven't been good.
right.
And that was a result of me being sexually abused at the age of 5 or 6, and thinking that I had done something to deserve it. And that really hit my core, even before I realized how much it was tied to that hidden trauma that really wasn't revealed to me until 41 or 42.
Right.
And so the inner child work is really beautiful because it's simple in the way that it's revealed to you. When you allow, it's your inner child coming through because of the simplicity in the words that they use and the way that they express themselves. It sounds the way a child would, and it's so sweet and it's so endearing. And that is how you're really tapping in.
Right. Oh, I love that. When you talk about masculine and feminine energy and living your life primarily in masculine because of the things we just spoke about and how I can relate to that. Explain how there was a pivot in your life where you started to realize, like, I've got to figure out how to get to the feminine energy and live there and wake that aspect of myself up.
The way I actually discovered that was when I was 31 and decided to quit my job and take a 1.5 year sabbatical to just like backpack by myself.
I love that so much.
um, and it's funny because I had kind of started to lean into my feminine energy without me really realizing it. I had growing up in Toronto, Canada, it's big city. It's kind of like our New York in Canada. And I was part of the grind, part of the hustle. I was working. Sometimes I'd work 3 jobs, just whatever I could to make money to buy my first property. Like it was just, you're so ingrained in the hustle. And of course I played as hard as I worked. And so I was exhausted. I was absolutely exhausted. And one day I just decided I just want to I want to relax a little. I think I need to get out of the city lifestyle. I've always been someone who knew that I wasn't going to wait until my retirement to live my life. I knew that I always wanted to live my life now in the now moment. And so there was opportunities to really do the things that most people would wait until, they were able to start knocking things off their bucket list. I wanted to do them right away. And one of them was I wanted to live on a Caribbean island. And so
fun.
I had moved down to the Caribbean island. And while I was there working, I started to slow down. And actually one of my girlfriends who came down to visit me just 6 weeks into me moving down there noticed. She said to me, Nicole, you're different. And I said, what do you mean I'm different? And she's like, I don't know. She goes, you're just softer. I was like, oh. And this was before I even really knew like anything about the masculine and feminine energies, truly. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I think I have softened a little. And I think it's been really good for my soul. And I decided that it's time for me to just maybe take a break from work. Cause I had been working like 5 or 6 years without a vacation. And so I quit my job and I started in Costa Rica. And I started with a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And I think that was the gateway to me remembering and reconnecting to my own feminine energy, because I had to get really still. I had to get very quiet. I had to just be in my body. And these were all very foreign concepts to me in like how I usually live my life. Like I always loved to meditate and all of that. I could do that. But in general, my lifestyle and my speed was just so fast and always moving. Mm-hmm. And in this moment, I had a very beautiful, transcendent experience where during one of the meditations, I left my body. I just became my energetic form, and I experienced me as my soul, my true essence, who I really was before taking on the identity of Nicole Frolick in this body. And it was incredibly surreal. And the most important part of that whole experience was that I was perfect exactly as I was. I didn't need to be more. I didn't need to change this about myself. I didn't need to do anything. I was perfectly content. I actually really liked who I was in that energetic form. And so when I came back into my body, as they rang the bell to finish the meditation, I realized I was back in my body. I realized exactly where I was and remembering who I am. And I just broke down into tears, and I was sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And the tears ultimately were because I finally returned home. I remembered who I really was. And all of these first 31 years of my life, I had spent trying to become something I wasn't, and thinking that it wasn't good enough, that I needed to be more. And I realized I don't need that. And then I started to realize that, what if I just stopped trying so hard? What if I just surrendered? What if I didn't plan everything? What if I didn't have to like be the controller of everything in my world? And so when I left that place, I promised myself because I was like, I'm not going to have an itinerary. I'm going to just go with the flow, and I'll book my hostels as I go, and I'll meet people and do all that. And that really was hard for me because I don't feel comfortable not having a schedule or a plan or itinerary, but it opened me up to so many possibilities, and it taught me how limiting my mind was when I was only in my masculine. And it's not to say that the masculine energy is limiting. We need the masculine energy in order to manifest, to focus the energy into a direction that can be created. But I started to learn how beautiful the feminine aspect was, and how, like, not working for a year and a half, I was like, wow, I'm not working. Who am I if I'm not producing? Like, what is my value if I'm not producing anything in this world? And of course, I was producing a lot. I actually was producing all the foundations of the work I do now, and I didn't even realize it.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was how it all started, was leaning into the flow and leaning into the unknown and the mysteries, and starting to go into the darkest places and starting to learn, what does it mean to actually take care of me? What does it mean to be softer? What does it mean to be nurturing to me? Like, I don't know that. Like, what's that? Like,
Right.
So yeah.
What just came to me, like dating. So now I know you had dated, you had relationships like late teens, 20s, but how did the dating shift when you got to that place? Like what if you look at it from a higher perspective, you're looking down at Nicole on this journey, how does that look? Like, what were you attracting? What were, like who were the guys that how has that evolved?
Oh gosh. Well, keep in mind, as I was leaning into this, there was all this very unhealed, deeply, deeply repressed sexual trauma. And so, despite me starting to making better choices, I was still attracting situations that would make me unsafe, and make me fear for either my own emotional safety or even my own physical safety. It wasn't until my mid 30s that I started to really shift that and get away from that. And it started to get better. Of course, what we don't realize is that within the healing journey, it's a transition. It's not a light switch. And so there's ebbs and flows, and you start to incorporate some of the really good, but then, like, you start to slip a little bit back into the old, and then and it's just this constant kind of like pendulum, but eventually you find your center. And that's important for people to really understand, so that they don't put too much expectations on their own progress when it comes to the healing journey, because it isn't linear. First of all, it's absolutely non-linear, and it does come in different phases and levels. And as you get stronger, some of the deeper stuff makes itself known to you, because now you're strong enough to handle it. So it's ongoing, but I would say that today I can say that I'm definitely making much better choices than I used to. I certainly don't put my head in the sand when I see a red flag anymore. I'm like, oh, red flag. Okay, like, turn away, go the other direction. Whereas before, I'm like, oh, how many red flags can I collect and not pay attention to?
Right. Totally.
But yeah, like, my relationships were always very, especially through my 20s, they were explosive. They were codependent. They lacked boundaries because of that codependency. There was one where I was verbally abused, one where I was emotionally abused, one where I was sexually cheated on, and then again, emotionally terrorized through an alcoholic relationship with someone who's an alcoholic. And that all finally kind of came to a head in my mid 30s, is when I finally was like, I can't do this anymore. Something has to change. And I went on a very deep internal journey of just not really dating too many people and really focusing on myself first before I could actually make better choices.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think, when you're talking about that, I was thinking, gosh, if you were asking me that question, I would be like, oh, geez. Yeah. I don't even know. I'd have to go back and undust those memories. Ugh. But let's talk about ayahuasca and plant medicine.
Ooh, yes, let's.
Because Nicole, I've never done that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I've interviewed, out of 190 episodes, a lot of them are, that's part of their journey. That's part of their, opening, the discovery of their, their soul. And I know that really opened you up, and you really talk highly about that. Like, you think that's like that was your, one of those moments that changed your everything.
Oh, it did. It did. And, I will say that I've been on this healing journey since I was 20, and I'm now 46. And so 26 years of deep diving. So it wasn't until after my 25 years of personal healing that I actually tried plant medicine. And I think it's important for anyone when they're going to even like go into that space is to understand that you're going to be met with a level of consciousness that you approach that plant medicine with. So, doing a lot of your own deeper healing work can be very beneficial to what kind of experience you might have, in a sense that you are going to, the plant medicine gets you out of your own way so that you can see the things that you need to see, so that the things that need to be revealed to you can be revealed. And so for me, I had been doing all this work and I had made great progress, but I also was curious. I'd been wanting to do ayahuasca since 2007 or 8. And my first time doing it was 2022. So last year.
Oh, okay.
And my first experience with it was physically torturous.
Well, that's what I hear, and that scares me. I'm like throwing up and hearing everybody. I'm like,
Yeah.
what did it find you, or did you find it?
It
They always
usually
say
finds
calls
you.
you.
It was calling me, had been calling me and been calling me. And I was like, I know that when it's ready, I'm going to be ready, and finally I'd hit that point, like, it's time to do it. It's time to do it. I'm ready. And, I like you, I used to pray to God when I was a child. I would sit there like rocking back and forth, like praying to God, please just, I'll do anything you ask me to do if you can prevent me from like throwing up. Like, I'll do anything. I just hated it. I'm so sensitive to, I can't hear people. I can't hear it. I can't smell it. Like, I'm just, ugh. So I was really like worried about that. I was like, I got to do everything that I can. Again, me coming in to control the experience. Right. I'm going to make sure I follow the dieta, which is this food, so that you make sure that your body's prepared for it. So, and I've done all like this great healing work for sure. I'm going to be safe. No. What you have to understand is that when it comes to Mother Ayahuasca, you do not get to choose how she's going to interact with you or how she won't. And you don't get to choose what she's going to show you and what she's not. And so for that particular one, there wasn't, the way that ayahuasca was brewed my first time, it wasn't with a lot of the DMT producing ingredient. It was more about the purge. And so I didn't really get any visions on my first one. I was actually really disappointed from that perspective. However, I did get what I needed. And the purge was so visceral. And I mean, it was from both ends. Okay. Not at the same time. Like, it's not like you're out of control, but here's the thing that can happen. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. When you are asking to clear your heart, and this will likely be the case for anyone who's a healer, for anyone who's used to taking care of others before they take care of themselves. My intention with ayahuasca was to clear my heart so I could love deeper. And clear my heart, she did. I literally purged an entire heart. When I was vomiting into the bucket in the jungle, I felt it all blackness coming out of my heart. And when it was on the toilet, it felt like it was another heart, because we actually have a heart in our gut as well, like an energetic heart, so to speak. And when we clear out this area where we've taken on everyone's crap, so to speak, right? a lot of us don't know how to release it. And so we accumulate all this stuff. I had to purge not just my own stuff, but everyone else's stuff that I had taken on, which a lot of empaths will do. And so I asked to clear my heart, and my heart was cleared. I was very emotional after. I felt very vulnerable, but I also felt very connected to just even strangers after. And everything started to shift in my dating after that too.
It did.
I actually had way better dating experiences and started to form relationships that were brand new to me and opening me up in new ways. And I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. So that was like my first experience with ayahuasca. But shortly after that, I did a psilocybin journey. And that I got all the visions, and that was wild. That was absolutely wild for me because I literally saw my DNA changing. I saw the mushrooms going in and reworking the DNA. I saw the ancestors of my DNA, their faces in the strands. And it was just like all of the women of my ancient like line. And I'm not just talking like just a couple of generations back. I'm talking down to the Mayans. I'm talking down to Egyptian. Like it was just everything was in there, and really kind of clearing my path for what my dreams were holding, so that I could attain them. But I would say my most powerful journey was with ayahuasca earlier this year, in just a few months ago, where I went through a wormhole. It was this tunnel of light just coming at me, and different ancient symbols like hieroglyphs and cuneiform and like Sumerian, like ancient scripts, and light language symbols, and all this stuff just blowing past me, like at the speed of light. Like, and I just felt like I was in this vortex I don't know where I was going, but then where I ended up was this really interesting AI reality. And I saw this, I was in this building, and I was looking down, and I could see a conveyor belt coming out of a wall. And on the conveyor belt out of the wall comes this rectangular plexiglass type thing. But inside the plexiglass was a side profile of me. And I was like, okay, all right. And then I see this conveyor belt slide down with this plexiglass, and then it gets scanned. I see it go through a scanner, and I'm getting scanned. And I thought, why am I getting scanned right now? And the next thing I hear is I hear a voice, and I hear, Nicole, we don't have much time. We've been waiting for this moment because we knew through your ayahuasca journey, you would enter into a slipstream that we could then pull you out of the matrix and remind you why you're there. And what? And so I end up talking to this woman who I recognize, but I don't know how I recognize her. I just know I love her so much, almost like family, like a friend, like just a sister almost. And she's reminding,
it's telepathy, right?
Yes, it's all telepathic. It's all telepathic. And she's telling me, just reminding me, like, just remind yourself that you went into this life with these specific programs to do the work that you're doing. And she's like, and you're doing a great job. You're on track. And I'm like, okay. She goes, so you agreed to these programs. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so then the next thing I know, she's let me go, and I enter into this vault, and it's the vault of all of my programs. And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there by myself, left to my own devices. And I start thinking to myself, well, if I'm outside of the program, and this is the vault of all my programs, then certainly I can start uninstalling the ones I don't want and start installing the ones I do want. So I'm like, okay. So I want to pull this program. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, this program that I know I've had and I've seen it play out in my reality over and over, that one, I want to pull that one. And I want to pull this one. And I want to pull that one. Okay, now let's install this one instead. And let's install that one instead. And it was literally like pulling out, like, I don't know, it was almost like I was pulling out 8 tracks or something. Like, it was really wild. And so that was really cool. And so then, the journey continues. I'm just in this high blissful state, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I broke the 4th wall. There's literally a 4th wall. And so when I come out of my journey, I'm like, well, there's only one way I'm ever going to find out if it actually was true and will work, is if my actual reality starts changing and I see it through the new programs. And sure enough, within just a couple of weeks, certain changes started to happen that I never anticipated.
Like what? Tell me. I want to know that. And I also want to know the guys that you were attracting after that whole thing. I want to hear a couple stories.
Okay. How do I say this without revealing too much? There was someone in my life that I felt like they didn't want me. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to re-engage a relationship with this person, but I was like, well, why live in a reality where they don't want me? Why not live in a reality where they do want me? And then I can choose if I want that or not, right? Like, and so sure enough, within a couple of weeks after no contact for years,
oh my gosh,
person reaches out. And since then, we've been developing a great friendship. And going deeper. And it's just like this, I was like, oh, wow, like this is so cool. I never would see that coming. And then there was another program that I uninstalled, was the struggling entrepreneur. And I was like, I don't want to be like this. I know that there's so much more. And I know like what I'm totally capable of. And I'm just like, I just don't want to have to be that struggling entrepreneur thing. And so I pulled that program and installed like me as a CEO running a company with a team. And the reason why this is so important is because I ran a program my whole life. The reason why I had the struggling entrepreneur program was, one, that's how I saw my dad, like that's how he operated. But also I was like, I do everything on my own. No one helps me. I do everything on my own. So how could I ever build a team? How could I ever have others working with me or for me if I believe that I can only do it on my own? And so I saw that I installed the program of me being the CEO of a company with a fantastic supportive team working with me, for me, great collaborators, all that kind of stuff. And that has already come to fruition as well. And that's already shifting. And so I just hosted a retreat here in Colorado, and I brought in a team to help me, and they facilitated, and it was the most incredible experience and made the retreat so much better than I could have ever had on my own. And so it was just seeing my business grow just in a short period of time, and also seeing the results of that. And then also breaking this belief system that I have to do it alone. It's like, oh, wow. And so those were just a couple of the programs that I installed. The one I'm waiting for is the mother. I want a family. And so, yeah. So we'll see. I have a feeling that's coming real soon.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
Yes. With this new guy, the one that
I don't know. I don't know if it's the new guy. I'm not allowing myself to attach to any specific person, just the energy of a supportive husband and father.
Huh. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about your dad, struggling entrepreneur, I mean, I'm like, is she my like soul sister? Like, everything you talk about, like I used to everything on my own, but forever. You just really, I need to go into that program and do my own reprogramming, because you just really, I relate so much to you.
Well, here's really quickly. Here's why this worked. And developed in real time really quickly. Like it started to show results of it really quickly. It wasn't like years down the road. We're talking weeks. I started to see results. The reason why plant medicine is so powerful is because it takes us to a place where, one, we get out of our own way, but we also are in a state where the reality that we're experiencing feels so real and it's so visceral. You really feel it on so many levels because you surrender to the medicine. You can feel it all, and you believe so much of what's happening there that your brain and your entire neural path, like nervous system, starts laying down new neural pathways. And they don't just start to lay them down, they start to lay them down and embed them, because whenever you feel something so deeply, you start to not only rewire, but you create a new neural pathway that goes deeply into the system. And so, for instance, this is why when you have a traumatic experience, why it quickly shapes your reality and forms new beliefs is because viscerally you felt it so intensely. And so when you are in these journeys, you can have that opportunity to actually rewire yourself and create a deeper embedded rewiring so that you fall into those neural pathways a lot more easily, as opposed to them being really shallow and you slipping out of them. You actually fall into them really deeply. And so that's one of the reasons why I think it works so well. But to that point, you don't need to do plant medicine to have that effect. You can create that. So one of the reasons, like when I did the retreat with everyone, I took them on a journey with no plant medicine first in the morning using this meditation that I created. And because I have such a strong visual gift of imagination and really tapping into all of the senses to make it really real, I took people in and made sure that every sense that they had was activated and felt, so that when they were in this meditation, they truly felt like it was happening to them. And every single person had a very emotional and visceral response in that meditation of things coming through that they hadn't expected. And so when you are working on your own, you can do this yourself by really allowing yourself to smell any sense, to touch anything around in your reality when you're in your meditation or you're imagining something. Bring in all the feelings, feel everything really deeply, like use every sense that you have. And that is what can help rewire your new neural pathways.
Oh, I love that. I when I was looking at the pictures of your retreat in Colorado, and reading about it, I was like, oh gosh, that called me. Now now knowing you more, like I see the magic in that. Amazing. And I love that it was like, when you think of all the limiting thinking and the beliefs that we've created our whole life, and you can go in that place and really rewire it, with the plant medicine or without, and realize how powerful we are, without, and it's, I do that with my clients. It's like, it's so, I get so much satisfaction when I see that light bulb hit, like, oh, really? I mean, I work with a lot of teenagers and parents.
Yes, I saw that. That's so incredible. I love that so much.
So starting young, like I did with my girls, programming them, not knowing if it's going to work, not knowing if they're getting it. And then, we get to high school and we're like, oh, it worked. Like, oh, because you don't know as a parent, as a mom, like, you're doing all the work, showing, being the model first, they do what you do, not what you say, but doing, like, laying down all the little things that I think are important. And then they get to this age. I didn't know that, but then I'm like, oh, they know their values, they have their worth, and they know how to be grateful, and all the things that I feel as a mom, if I had that, like knowing that we fulfill our passion is what, we were lacking, and what we see now as so important. And that's kind of where that evolved. So are we almost, can I do a few more minutes?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So I want to go, because I always love to ask, and like, where the world is going to you. Like, I know you've had an encounter with, like, you talk the ETs you've had, where you're at your parents' house and you went down to the water cooler and you looked outside and it like talked to you, and you went out and had this, an orb. But can you go into kind of like those dimensions a little bit? Because I like, oh my gosh, Nicole has so many things I would love to talk to her about. But let's end on that. Then we'll share where everyone can find you and all that stuff.
Yeah. Like, so do you mean like, where do I see the world going right now? Or
2023, like 20, I know you talked about 2020, and we all had to, the reason, like, it was all working, it's all for a reason. And then we are now 3 years, almost 4. Crazy to think that's been 4 years. But where do you see everything?
I actually see really good things. Now, I want to caveat that with good things also come a lot of upheaval, because good things means change. And so when I say I see good things, I don't want people to think I see a utopia. But I really like where the world is going. And I know that's not what most people would say, but I really am seeing huge shifts. I'm seeing, and part of this is because I'm going to say that I believe plant medicine is playing a big role in helping to open up the levels of consciousness of humanity. Because so many people are unaware of really all the different realities around us, all of the things beyond this planet, what actually exists, what we're actually capable of in this meat suit and beyond. I think that that the beautiful thing about plants medicine is that it opens your mind to all that's really around. So, for instance, I just did my own psilocybin journey a week or two ago, and it was the first time where, with my physical eyes, I could see in the field around me all of these this information, and just sitting there encoding my field, like different symbols and all that kind of stuff. And people are going to be opening up more and more to this as we continue on. Was it earlier this year? When did Jupiter conjunct Neptune? I believe it was just last year, or like late last year. It's just within the last year or so. And Jupiter, the reason why I say this is because Neptune is in Pisces, and Pisces represents the 12th house. And this is kind of like what I do with my coaching program, is I really talk a lot about the 12th house because it's the house of self-undoing. It's also the house of self-transcendence. And it's where the inner child lies. It's where our fears, our shames, our guilts lie. It's also the house of plant medicine and psychedelics. And so when Neptune became conjunct with Jupiter, it started a new 12-year cycle. And this opened up the message that I got around this is that psychedelics and plant medicine are going to become a mainstay in our communities, in mainstream. They're going to be going mainstream. And because of this, people are going to be opening up their minds in new ways. So for instance, I was at a networking event with VCs, investors, wealth management people, and all of them, as soon as I started talking about plant medicine, it's like I just opened the door to Christmas for them. It's like, and all of them started having these deeper spiritual conversations with me about how they really wanted to learn more about themselves, and how they're really wanting to explore the healing path, and who am I? And all these more existential questions. And I'm like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. And so the thing is I think deep down, it's kind of a secret club, but the funny thing is that everyone's almost in the secret club of wanting to really explore, whether it's through plant medicine or not, really starting to ask themselves, what is this life for me? Who am I really? And what am I going to do that makes my life more meaningful, that I feel actually purpose in what I'm doing? And I really see that opening up for people. And I think we're going to see over the next 10 years or so, 11 years, this is really going to unfold at faster rates. And so I believe that that people are even just talking, like, I'm going to be doing another ayahuasca journey in a month from now, and I'm bringing someone with me. It's going to be his first time. And he's also in this world of wealth management and all of that. And he's let me know that a lot of his friends who are in sports and, all these different arenas, that they're all interested in this. And like, everyone's kind of talking about it, and they're just kind of wondering. And so again, it's not for everyone, but the path of opening up oneself to healing, there's so many different avenues. And I think what's beautiful about the plant medicine is that I think it's going to help people not just get out of their own ways, but make the breakthroughs that they need to make in order to touch the essence of that knowing, like I did in that meditation back when I was 31, getting that taste of who I really was at the eternal level of my own soul, and knowing, just because that has been the thing that stays with me forever. Once I tasted it, I know now where I'm going. I know what I'm capable of. And so I feel like plant medicine will allow people to have those short breakthroughs, but potent enough that they get a taste of what it is that they've been seeking or looking for, or remembering, I should even say, remembering within themselves. And then their journey unfolds on how to really bring that in and integrate it on a daily basis.
Oh, I love it. That's so, when I think of you and, even going on another ayahuasca journey, like so close together.
Yeah.
And introducing.
It might be my last one for a long time. I'm feeling like it's interesting because I feel like I'm really called to do this one, but I also am feeling like this might be my last one for a while.
Why?
I just feel it because I don't know if I'm going to really need it after that. Like, I feel like I'm going to get what I need to from the plant, and I don't ever want to abuse something. There's a sacredness to it. And, the truth of the matter is that, the ayahuasca vine is not growing fast enough or being cared for enough, to be able to support this entire world at the rate it's being used. And so for me, I don't need to use it more than I know I need it, and then let others have their share. It's kind of like how I see it, and it's just the truth of the matter. Now, mushrooms, on the other hand, those just grow like wildflowers. So
oh, funny.
Yeah.
And you do that by yourself, like at home? When you said you did the
mushrooms I do now, yes. First, I had someone guide me when I first did it. But the truth of the matter is that because I've been doing this healing journey so long, that I know I trust myself, and I know how to surrender, and I know exactly where to go in my journey. I know how to guide it myself. That with mushrooms specifically, I'm okay on my own. Now, ayahuasca, absolutely not. You need a shaman. You need a good shaman, not just any shaman. You really want to do your work and your research on who you're with, because you're opening up to the spirit world, and you need to know that you have the right shaman who knows how to help you through that.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. I've always been told that, for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. One really quick question before I want to know, because you want to be a mother.
Yeah.
How are you encompassing? How are you manifesting? What do you do in your practice that is bringing that to you?
Oh. So this is how I know, because I've already seen the visions of where my business is going to be going as a result of me opening up to motherhood. I've had a really long journey with fertility, as you know, and in one of my mushroom journeys, I was taken back into the ancient times of Egypt. And I found myself in a fertility temple with other women. And the fertility temple was a place that you went to before you got pregnant, before you conceived. And in these temples, because I also have had a lot of Kundalini awakenings through these mushroom journeys, and I can just tap into the energy now like that. I was going through this. I had tapped into, and I have a course on this actually, that I help women, not just women and men, but to how to really activate your womb space, to not just bring about this energy, but to clear the energy of shame, guilt, all the things that kind of hold that space back. And I started singing a song in my journey. Like, actually, it was coming out of my mouth. And I saw the sound frequencies leaving my mouth and traveling up through the temple, and a portal had opened through the Kundalini activation of all the women, me and the women in there.
Wow.
And this stream of sound energy went out into the cosmos and it found my son.
Oh, wow.
My son heard it. And I keep seeing a boy, and I'll never know for sure if he's going to come through or not, but he followed the sound towards me, and that's how he found me and was able to connect with me.
Oh my
Well, as soon as he connects in, right behind him, I see a girl standing there, and she follows with him.
Wow.
And I have this sense that twins could be a possibility. I know that especially as you get older, that increases, that likelihood increases. Or I don't know if she's planning on coming in after. I don't know exactly how it's all going to work. I can't even pretend to know. I'm not even going to try to control that.
Right.
But
Oh,
so what I was shown was that in the ancient times of these Egyptian times, these temples, these women would go and hold these fertility ceremonies of preconception, so that the soul, you were already connected to the energy of the soul, so that when you actually go to conceive with your partner, the child is already connected and finds its way in.
wow.
And so it was really beautiful. And I've actually, it was shown that I'm going to be working with other musicians and be holding these fertility ceremonies on stage for women who want to get pregnant.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. And
Music.
take women
Wow.
back to the ancient remembrance of these ceremonies and how powerful they can be.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad I asked you that.
So yeah, totally simple, just totally like every day. But that's just one way that I've been doing it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Amazing. Oh, Nicole, it's been so fun to meet you. Tell everyone how to find you, what you're doing, your courses online, in person.
Yeah. You can find me on my website is NicoleFrolick.com. And I have a bunch of different courses there in my academy. The Womb of Activation one I was talking about is there. I also have an inner child course where I take you through the 7 chakras of healing. And then I'm also actually getting ready to announce the next retreat. I've got the dates locked in. I'm just getting ready to finalize everything and announce that really soon. And that will be in April next year. Okay. So I've got that retreat coming up. And then, I've got my podcast, Enlighten Up, and also anything else you need to find. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Those are my 3 social media platforms.
Fun. Oh, it's been so fun to get to know you and learn your story. And I've learned so much from you, and get excited to see what next is, because I feel connected to you. So it's like a fun connection.
I know. I
when
love
you meet.
your energy. It's so, what I love about it is it feels really calm and safe.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Like it's just like, it's really nice. It's very inviting. So thank you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. Until next time.